What is up, guys? Lord Nick here, bringing you another One Piece related video. And in this video, guys, this is the second deck tech to my Charlotte Linlin decks. This is the deck that I will be playing in my locals here for the next week or two. And probably will be playing this or my Rob Lucci list. If you haven't seen that one, it's also on the YouTube up until OP05 comes out. And a big part of that is just because I'll be probably playing Blue Black Sakazuchi in that set. And I've tested a lot of other decks, and this deck was actually one of the more fun ones. I did actually test this one tonight as of the recording of this video, which is the 25th of October. And I wasn't testing it as mono yellow, I tested it as yellow black, and that deck was a heck of a lot of fun. So some of the cards that are in this list were in that list, and I switched out a lot of the black cards and just made this mono yellow. So this deck is a little bit weird. It has a lot of odd tech cards in it, but a lot of cool cards in it too, and a lot of non-standard cards in lots of different decks. So let's jump into this deck. As you can tell, there's a ton of different unique cards, but let's get into it. Much like the other competitive list, this deck revolves around Sanjis. I don't run as many Daifukus, as I have found that the Daifuku does not work as well in this particular list, the way that this one wants to function. Not because he's a bad card, but just on curve, I don't always want Daifuku. As the game gets later, I'd prefer to have something that's a little bit more powerful. Thus, we've cut the Daifuku down by 2. Sanji is just as important as in that list. And much like to the other video, where I kind of recommended what you needed in your opening hand, you will need a Sanji, a Pudding, or a Parasparrow, if not all three, in your opening hand. And if you're on even turns, you want Daifuku or Katakuri. If you're on odd turns, you want Parasparrow. The difference is in this deck, you have almost as many 2Ks in it. You don't run as many 2Ks. You do run more blockers, though. You run 8 blockers opposed to more 2Ks in this deck. But the 2Ks are different in this deck. So we're only running 3 Strusen because I still want to tech card if against law matchups. This is still fine. You don't need as many of them. You're then also running 4 of the 2-drop Puddings. This is a controversial 2K that a lot of people dislike, but in this particular list, the way that this one is structured and built, Pudding is very useful at being able to reorganize your life for you. Much like how Katakuri's rush ability allows you to look at the top of your life or your opponent's life and kind of change it around, so does Pudding. So this card allows you to be like, I'm really afraid that my opponent has a trigger before my attacks here. Let me drop Pudding, take a look, and see if that's actually a threat. Oh, it's not? Cool. Now we know we're safe to swing in and do something that we need to do. Or it's a, hey, I really have a desperate situation. I have 3 life left, and I can really use X trigger in position here. You get to use Pudding to reorganize it. The card gets memed on for just being like, oh, you just get to look at your life. Reorganizing your life in this particular list is exceptionally useful and exceptionally valuable, as we want to maintain our triggers to go off at the right time. It is reminiscent of security control from Digimon. That being said, this is a much more aggressive list than many of those security control lists, as this is a aggro / mid-range list that just happens to have a ton of 2Ks and triggers on here. Anyhow, outside of the normal tech cards and then the 10-drop moms and then 2 of the 7-drop moms, let's get into the real spice of the list. If you haven't looked, it's going to be the homie package. We are running 5 separate homies and then 2 stages in this list. We are running one of Hera. Hera allows you to restand one of your Charlotte Linlins by KOing or trashing one of your other homie characters. So this card allows us to either restand a 10-drop mom, restand a 7-drop mom, or restand our leader and get a second swing in with them. This can be a super easy way to end the game. On top of that, we have Zeus, who allows us to get banish on one of our Charlotte Linlins. Now, note, it does say Charlotte Linlins. It does not say character. It does not say leader. So it's either or. So you can put it on both the characters and the leader. And then Prometheus allows them to gain double attack. Now, note, I was looking at adding more of each of these, of this package in and cutting some of the other cards that we have here in lesser ofs, but I didn't want to overwhelm it with that. It is a very solid strategy, but it can be a dud of too many cards. And setting up this strategy is pretty fun. It is just kind of difficult in terms of consistently being able to utilize it in every matchup. Some of the matchups we do need to run for a bit more of a grindier kind of feel to it, and these cards kind of become 1Ks or a late game drop to end the game, opposed to being constant added pressure. It kind of depends also when you draw them. So you could look at ticking them up to 3-ofs of Prometheus and 3-of of Zeus, and maybe a 2nd of Hera. You don't really want too many Heras. You only really want to see one of her. You want to activate her one time, and that is to finish off your opponent or to do one really big swing into your opponent on a turn, followed by another really big swing. Outside of this package, we are also running 2 of Queen Mama Chanter. So this card is actually surprisingly strong with this list because of the fact that we are reorganizing our life a ton. 1, this card allows us, so for those that don't know, you can activate this. This is a stage. You can activate this, add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life. So if you know what's at the bottom of your life and you want it in your hand, you can grab it, or you know what's on top and you want it in your hand, you can grab it. Then place a character with cost 3 or less from the field on your side of the field that you control to the top of your life. Now note there's a lot of things that you can do with this here. It does not specifically say from the field, so I don't know if this means that you can choose a 3-cost character from your hand. I have only been using it as from the field though, so or from in play. So just note that is the case because it says place up to, so I'm not sure if it allows you to place from your hand or it has to be in play. Card is very strong either way because of the fact that 1, our Zeus and our Prometheus are both 3-drops. So if you get early both of these, they force your opponent to start using cards or burning blockers early because they add a lot of pressure. A lot of people are fearing the Yamato that comes out in OP06 because of the double attack innately on there. And early Prometheus essentially says your leader has double attack all the time. If you can turn 1, say you go second, and on turn 1 you drop a Queen Mama Chanter, and then turn 2 you drop a Prometheus and add 1 to your mom, swinging 6 with double attack, and then you put Prometheus to the top of your life and gate to what you've just done is said, I attack you for 6 with double attack, draw a card. That is very, very strong. And you can choose at any point to be like, yeah, I want him to come out. So he comes back out so I can have him next turn. So you lose a life, but overall you've netted the life early. So you can also choose to just leave him there. If you choose, you know what, he's safer there and I don't really need to use him to keep the pressure up right now, I'm going to leave him there because my opponent knows he will come back out. So maybe it starts messing with your opponent mentally. Tonight, testing this card has felt very, very good. Queen Mama Chancer might go up to a 3-of. Prometheus might go up to a 3-of. Zeus might go up to a 3-of. What cards would I consider potentially reducing? I would probably say maybe the Rush Katakuri. This card is really, really good as a closer or a mid-game card. If you feel like you could just take a couple of damage from your opponent just to gain extra cards and you put yourself to 3 pretty early and your opponent's at full, you can come back out on turn 2 or 3 with this and have Rush and just come in at your opponent and do quite a bit of a substantial amount of havoc with this card out of nowhere. He might get cut to add an extra 1 of each of these. In terms of the Chanter, you might cut the 1 Soul Focus. Much like how I've already mentioned in the other deck tech, why Soul Focus is such a good card. It's pretty useful in this deck, but this deck is much more aggressive and much more about trying to keep constant pressure on your opponent, opposed to the other one, which does have some heavy pressure, but also is pretty defensive. This one is not necessarily as defensive, though you have a lot of 2K options and you have more blockers. A lot of that is to be able to manipulate your life with stuff. Brûlés are very good because they can come out of your life and you're like, okay, it came out of my life. I don't really want that yet, so I'm going to put it back into my life, and I'm going to start stacking stuff on top of it so that I know I can push it down in my life and utilize it later when I need it. So it's pretty... This deck has a lot of cool security control kind of options to it. It is aggressive, it is fast, and it hits really hard in the late game too, because if you happen to stick a 10-drop bomb, and you have a Prometheus in your life, and your opponent swings into you, and you get to play your Prometheus, and you can survive, and nothing gets removed, right? Like, that does sound like it's asking a lot, but it really isn't. In late game, your opponent probably doesn't have that much removal ready to go, and if they're removing Prometheus, that's kind of feels bad for them, because he himself is not a threat, but he makes your other cards such a big threat. But let's just say, because it's happened to me a lot tonight, that Prometheus comes out of my life, he sits there, and what happens next? Well, then I drop Hera. Well, if I drop Hera, I tap Prometheus, make my 10-drop mom have double attack. Say your opponent only has 2 life left anyways. This card is now threatening to open them up to life, and you still have another attacker. You drop Hera for 5 after the attack. So you do this first. You double attack. It goes through. Guess what? You drop Hera for 5. You suspend Hera, pop your Prometheus, restand mom, swing in another 12 with double attack. All of a sudden, you've just threatened to kill your opponent here. They have to dump their hand, dump some blockers, do something to stop that. And then on top of that, you still have 5 more Dawn ready to go. And you could swing with your leader. You can just restack life with your leader if you need to. Or you can just swing in 10 with your leader. Or you could drop a Rush Katakuri for 6 and swing in 6 with your leader. Like, there's so much that this deck has to do that these homies, just as a small of package, allows you to do. I'm also running a 2 of Caramel. Caramel does kind of what Strucin does. She allows you to pop some early blockers, pop some 1-drops that you might need to do, and because you can reload her into your life, and it's out of life that this does this, can be exceptionally disruptive. Otherwise, she's from your hand just to draw 1 card. Not actually all that bad. I don't know if she will stay in the list. She is also something that could come out for the homie package. It could just be 2 of her come out for 1 more of each of these guys, and then maybe we go down to we cut down both of these for 1 more Mama's Charter and 1 more Soul Focus. There's some leeway and ways to move around this deck. This deck is a lot of fun, and I wanted to point out that the homie package is not nearly as bad as it looked on paper. Playing it felt really fun, felt really good. I would recommend this list to people who are looking to just have fun at locals. I don't know how actively competitive this deck is, but I will say that I took a Yamato deck. It took Yamato deck to life on both. I took a Whitebeard down to nothing and had him have to pop 2 Fosses and drop his entire hand to survive. He did have enough cards to swing back and win. And then I fought another Whitebeard, and very similar matchup happened there. So the deck has legs. It holds its own against Whitebeard. I did have quite a few misplays that I did tonight because it was my first time playing the list and kind of figuring out all the ins and outs of what this list wants to do. I would say that this list has some competitive legs to it, but it is mostly a fun list, and hopefully you guys will have fun with it too. And if you guys like these videos, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave comments down below, let me know how you felt about these or what you're interested in, and maybe some techs of your own. I'm pretty good about responding to that stuff, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. And until then, have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day. Goodbye, guys.